Hey, welcome back. I'm Ibnul Jaif Farabi, and this is Empire Builders, the rise and fall of civilizations. You know, living in New York, you get used to certain rules. Traffic lights, taxes, the unspoken etiquette of the subway. We accept these structures because they promise order, safety, civilization. But what if, for a brief, glorious moment, a group of people threw out the rulebook entirely, not into chaos, but into something they saw as more fair, more free, more democratic than the empires that scorned them? I'm talking about the early 18th century in a sun-drenched archipelago in the Bahamas, where a society of outcasts didn't just raid the shipping lanes. They built a working republic, a pirate utopia. This is the story of the Republic of Pirates. Picture the Caribbean around 1715. The War of the Spanish Succession has just ended. Peace is a problem for thousands of seasoned sailors, privateers who once had the legal blessing of the British Crown to attack enemy ships. Now, they're unemployed, skilled, and deeply disillusioned. The Royal Navy treats its common sailors with brutal contempt. The merchant ships are floating tyrannies, and the spoils of the New World flow in a strict, unbreakable hierarchy, from the colonies, to the merchant lords, to the crowned heads of Europe. These sailors, these now out-of-work privateers, they'd seen that system from the bottom looking up, and they wanted out. So they chose exile. They flocked to Nassau, on New Providence Island in the Bahamas. It was a perfect haven, a natural harbor, shallow enough to deter large naval warships, but deep enough for their sleek, fast sloops. The British governor had basically fled, and into this vacuum stepped men like Benjamin Hornigold, Henry Jennings, and soon, the legends, Blackbeard, Charles Vane, Calico Jack Rackham, and the pirates and Bonnie and Mary Red. But this isn't just a story of individual rogues. This is about what they built together. Because in Nassau, they didn't just establish a base, they established a social contract. They called it the Pirate Code. Now, that phrase might conjure images of buried treasure and parrots, but in reality, it was a radical, democratic constitution. Captains were elected by the crew and could be deposed by the crew. Major decisions, like whether to chase a prize or fight a warship, were put to a vote. The loot was distributed according to a strict, equitable schedule. The captain might get a double share, but the cook got a share, the carpenter got a share, the lowliest deckhand got a share. Compare that to the Royal Navy, where the captain lived in luxury and the sailors faced starvation and the lash. They even had a form of workers' compensation, a specific payment for losing an eye or a limb in battle. This was a brotherhood, or a motley crew as they called it, built on a stark, pragmatic sense of fairness. And it was shockingly inclusive for its time. Pirates came from all over the Atlantic world. Former slaves, indentured servants, poor Englishmen, Africans, Native Americans. In a world defined by rigid class and race, the pirate ship was a meritocracy. Your skill and courage mattered more than your birthplace. That's how a former privateer like Blackbeard could command alongside a man like Black Caesar, an African warrior said to have been a chief before his capture. For a decade, this republic functioned. They ran a virtual blockade on the world's busiest shipping lanes, capturing hundreds of vessels. They traded with sympathetic merchants in the American colonies. Nassau became a bustling, raucous, self-governing pirate capital of perhaps 2,000 souls, a direct challenge to every imperial power in the region. But of course, empires don't tolerate challengers for long. The success of the Republic of Pirates was also its greatest threat. The losses mounted for the British merchant class. Insurance rates in London skyrocketed. Something had to be done. The empire's response came in the form of a complicated man, Woodes Rogers. A former privateer himself, a survivor of incredible voyages, he understood pirates better than any aristocrat in London ever could. In 1718, King George I appointed him royal governor of the Bahamas and gave him a simple, powerful offer to take to Nassau, a king's pardon. Any pirate who surrendered would be absolved of all crimes. It was an amnesty. This offer split the republic. Many, like Benjamin Hornigold, took the pardon. They were tired, maybe saw the writing on the wall. Others, like Charles Vane, rejected it outright. In a spectacular act of defiance, as Rogers' fleet entered the harbor, Vane's ship sailed out, flying the black flag, and he fired a full broadside at the governor's flagship before escaping to sea. It was the old world literally firing on the new. But the fracture was fatal. Rogers fortified Nassau, began to restore legitimate government, and turned the former pirates who'd taken the pardon into pirate hunters. The Brotherhood was now hunting its own. The end came swiftly for the holdouts. Blackbeard was hunted down and killed in a ferocious battle in North Carolina. Charles Vane was captured, tried, and hanged. Calico Jack and Bonnie and Mary Read were captured in a famous raid where, legend says, the two women fought ferociously while the men hid below deck. By 1720, the experiment was over. The Republic of Pirates had lasted barely a decade. So what are we to make of this? As an engineer and an entrepreneur, I'm fascinated by systems. And the pirates built a remarkably resilient, efficient, and fair system for themselves. It was a direct democracy born of shared hardship and a common enemy. It proved that people written off as the dregs of society could organize, govern, and prosper on their own terms. But its fatal flaw was also a core part of its identity. It was, at its heart, a reactive enterprise. It was built against something, against empires, against captains, against unfair shares. It wasn't built for generational sustainability. It had no agriculture, no real long-term economy beyond plunder. It was a brilliant, fleeting protest, not a blueprint for a permanent nation-state. There's a personal reflection here for me, too. Coming from Bangladesh, a place that fought for its own linguistic and cultural identity, and now building a life here in the heart of the modern empire that is New York, I understand the tension between building your own world and living within an existing one. The pirates chose a clean, dramatic break. Most of us don't get that choice. We work within systems, trying to bend them toward greater fairness, like those pirate codes did on their ships. Their republic may have fallen, but the idea behind it, that ordinary people can draft a better contract for their lives, that idea never really gets captured or hanged. It just waits for its next harbor. The Republic of Pirates shows us that empire isn't just about land and gold. It's about the story of who gets to make the rules. For one brief, sun-bleached moment, a group of outlaws decided they would write their own. And in doing so, they built one of history's most fascinating and most human, short-lived empires. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this journey to Nassau's pirate haven, please share this episode with someone who'd love the story. For more deep dives into the forgotten corners of history, make sure you're subscribed to Empire Builders wherever you get your podcasts. This is Ibnul Jaif Farabi for Light, Not Studios. Until next time.